Joining us now, Tyler Foote. He is the Executive Director of Americans for Prosperity in Virginia, and AFP doing a lot of cool things these days. Tyler, good to have you with us.
Good morning, John. Thanks for having me.
Now, the last time I had a cigar was at your last cigar event. So now I'm going to have one tonight at Chick's Oyster Bar, and it'll have your name on it. I'll be thinking about
I want
you
your
guys.
job, John. It seems like you get to go to all the fun receptions across the state.
Now you sound like my wife now, right? That's what she says. Hey, I always say, I got to take one for the team. AFP, protecting the American dream by fighting each day for lower taxes, less government regulation, and economic prosperity for all. On its website, americansforprosperity.org, Tyler, it says that there are over 2.8 million activists across the country. There's like 800,000 or something. How many are there in Virginia?
So there's 87,000 in Virginia, and then, like you said, 2.8 million nationwide. And those are up-to-date numbers. We consider an activist to be somebody that's taken an action with us in the last year. So whether that's somebody that's knocked doors for us, phone bank, signed a petition, attended a rally or a town hall. So those are, these are relevant numbers and people that have participated in an AFP event in the last year. So it's pretty up to date and pretty impressive when you really think about it. We're the only organization in the country that has that type of grassroots capability across the country, and so it really helps us amplify our message across the state and at the federal level. So we're pretty fortunate, and we couldn't do what we do without our activists. They're the lifeline of our organization. So. I want to give a quick shout out to everybody across the country, and especially here in Virginia, for everything that you guys do for us.
Well, you think about this, 87,000 activists in Virginia alone, almost 3 million nationwide. When Tim Phillips became the president of this, when he first took it over, the ultimate vision was that something like you've got right now, that there'd be a couple, 3 million activists across the country that could be energized on any particular issue at any time and move the needle by doing grassroots work, knocking on doors, talking to voters, handing flyers out, making phone calls. And now it's a reality. You go into 2016, the elections, AFP is a nonpartisan organization, so you take policy positions, and obviously candidates that have those policy positions you're favorable to, and the opposite. But there's no other organization in America, Tyler, that can unleash almost 3 million activists. And by the time you get to the fall, it's going to be 3 million. There's no other organization on either side, left or right, that can match that.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and I think that's what makes us so effective. If you look at our victories over the last year or 2 years, we've had a lot of victories at the federal level, no doubt, but a lot of them have come from the state level, and it's because people like yourself and like your listeners who are, just fed up with the status quo, and they're also fed up with the party structure because they feel like the party structure is, either left them behind or doesn't represent them anymore. So, AFP is a good home for those types of folks because, we're in it for the policies, not the politicians. And so, I think our model has been really successful across the country. And again, it just goes to show, when you have as many activists as we do, people have bought into our mission and to our brand. It really makes us who we are today. So it's pretty impressive to watch, what Tim Phillips started building back in the early 2000s to what it is now. It is a totally different operation. It has grown leaps and bounds, and we've been incredibly successful because of it.
Even since we started, AFP, everyone knows, has been a founding sponsor of the John Fredericks Show. I tell everybody I wouldn't be here without them, and they've been sponsoring me since I first went on the air in January 1st, 2012, actually January 2nd. And I remember back then it was under 1 million members. It was like 800, 900,000. And now you've grown that to almost 3 million. What are some of the top issues nationally now that AFP is really focused on?
Yeah, we're watching a lot of different issues this year, but there's two that I want to highlight this morning. The first and probably the most important right now is the 2017 budget battle that's going on in Congress. Congress has up until mid-April to pass a budget blueprint that will determine funding for the 12 appropriation bills. And our hope is that we can get a balanced budget coming out of these committees. It's obviously no secret that Washington has a serious spending problem, and it's well past time that we need to get it under control. Citizens all over Virginia and all over the country have to live within their means and balance their budgets, and Washington should do the same, but for some reason they're not. And that's probably why our national debt now is $19 trillion and growing. So that's probably the first and most important issue that we're looking at this year. The second is the Marketplace Fairness Act, and I'm not sure how familiar you are with that, but it basically creates a national online sales tax. So, for instance, if you own a small online jewelry business in Richmond and you sell an item to someone in Louisville, Kentucky, where I'm from, then that retailer then would be expected to collect and remit the sales tax for Louisville, Kentucky. So, obviously, there's a couple different problems with that. Number one, it's unconstitutional. The Supreme Court ruled, I believe, in the early 60s that in order for states to collect the sales tax, the retailer has to have a physical presence within the state's borders. And then, second of all, as I in the example that I alluded to, if you're a business owner here in Richmond and you're expected to calculate and remit sales taxes for Kentucky, you then have to comply with over 10,000 different tax jurisdictions across the country, and that's nearly impossible for you to do as a small business owner. So it creates unnecessary and burdensome regulation and also stifles competition in a time when we need to be creating more jobs and more opportunities for people. So that's a bill that actually been going on for a couple of years now. I think came out in 2012, 2013. Congress keeps kicking the can down the road. It's back, something that we're watching, that we're fighting against pretty hard. Mm-hmm. And Bob Goodlatte actually has been a pretty big proponent on this on our side. And so I want to give a shout out to him for all of his work on this issue, and hope that he continues to be a champion for us on defeating the Marketplace Fairness Act.
Well, he's bottled it up in his committee. I mean, that's the bottom line. He just hasn't taken it out. And the detractors say that it creates an unfair playing field, that if you're a brick and mortar location, you have to pay the taxes. If you're online, you don't. And then it goes back to where's the warehouse and things of that nature. So to enlighten our audience, so if I'm selling something and I don't have a big online presence, I'm paying the tax, yet my competitor can be up the street, they're not paying the tax because they're selling online. So some people say that's the government picking winners and losers. How do you guys respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is local businesses only have to deal with, if you have a physical presence in a state and you're a local business, you only have to deal with a limited number of taxes, usually the state tax, county, and local tax perhaps. Right. But again, if you're an online store, then you're going to have to be expected to navigate roughly 10,000 different jurisdictional sales taxes, which, is really tough. So if you want to make the marketplace more fair, then we need to reduce burdensome regulations in all businesses, not punish, a handful. And another common argument is that, there's now software that exists to help ease the regulatory burden, so that businesses that are online won't actually have to hand tabulate the taxes from across the country. But an estimate from an organization called True Simplification of Taxation, it's a long name. Even with the software, said the businesses will still have to spend between $80,000 to $290,000 just to implement the software program, and then another $57,000 to $260,000 in maintenance upkeep. So, for an online retailer like Amazon, that's not a big deal, right? They have the lawyers in-house to kind of navigate this issue. They have the extra disposable income to navigate this issue. But for your local mom and pop shop, that's not chump change. And they also don't have access to the legal expertise that a store like Amazon or eBay or anything like that has access to. So, they want to make the marketplace fair, but it actually is, hurting small business owners. And again, we're at a time right now where we need more jobs, we need more innovation, we don't need fewer. So if you're looking to make the marketplace fair, let's reduce burdensome regulations and taxes on all businesses, and not just pick out punish a handful.
The bottom line is you would pay a tax that you're not paying now. So that's called the tax increase, right? Mm-hmm. Let's just simplify it. You're not paying the tax now. Marketplace fairness, which is like the Affordable Care Act, right? Misnomer in the name. Marketplace Fairness Act says you're not paying a tax now. After it's implemented, you would pay a tax where you didn't pay one. I don't know what math people do, but that is a tax increase. And right. So the proponents of it say, well, it's the government, get the government out of picking winners and losers. There's an argument there. There's no question. But I just prefer to call things as they are. That is a tax increase. And
Right.
so if people are for a tax increase in order to punish those that do business online, then just call it what it is. Call it an online punishment tax. And, then it's at least descripting what it is. Okay, that's a big one. What else?
Like I said, those are the main two issues that we're keeping an eye on right now. Kathy McMorris Rogers, has a really cool bill that actually is trying to get a handle on reauthorized spending for unauthorized programs. So, right now I think Congress spent something like over $350 million, I believe, on unauthorized programs. And so she's trying to make sure that, we actually have a review process to either A, authorize those programs or at least authorize the spending and not just, continual renewal of those programs. So looking at ways that we can reduce unauthorized spending in Congress and make sure that taxpayer dollars are being used wisely. Again, I don't think it's a secret that Congress has a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse, and I think this is maybe not fraud or abuse, but it's definitely wasteful spending. And so, any way that we can get a handle on that type of spending, I think is going to be really beneficial to the taxpayers and also help with our national debt. And let's talk about the national debt real quick. I mean, it's $19 trillion and growing, which is just absolutely absurd. And I think it's, personally, I think it's immoral that we're leaving our future generations with that type of debt to pay, because once interest kicks in for that, it's going to make up for a large percentage of our GDP. So it's not, you and me that are dealing with it right now, John. It's going to be, my kids and my kids' grandkids. So we really have to get our national debt under control and get our spending under control. Otherwise, we're putting ourselves at a great disadvantage and really in a harmful position for future generations. So I hope that, Congress can finally get their act together, pass a balanced budget this year, really set a template for future Congresses to make sure that, we're spending taxpayer money wisely and responsibly.
Well, they're never going to do anything in the current environment we're in, Tyler. I mean, just what you said earlier, think of this to our listening audience. You have Kathy McMorris Rogers in Washington has to sponsor legislation so that you don't just automatically authorize spending for things that are unauthorized, and it's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. So this is money just being automatically allocated to things that haven't even been authorized. Right. And then you wonder why we have a $19 trillion debt, and in the budget we've got that, passed now that I guess Cromnibus or Omnibus, I forget which, I guess Omnibus was the 2014, Cromnibus was 2015. Right. It's another $1 trillion added to the deficit. Not only are we not reducing it, we keep adding to it. And we have Republican majorities in two houses, and we added another $1 trillion. That's why people are so upset.
Yeah, I agree 110%. It's frustrating. Like I said, families all across the country are expected to live within their means. And if they can't, then there's penalties for that. They get in trouble. Yet Congress doesn't have that same type of responsibility. So it's a little frustrating, and I can definitely understand where the American people have such low confidence in Congress right now because they can't get anything done. They went on a 2-week break right now. They left yesterday for a 2-week break when they have to have until mid-April to pass a budget blueprint. So they get back, they have 2 days to make a huge decision on how much money they're going to spend in 2017. Why are they staying in D.C. to get this figured out? It's a little frustrating sometimes.
It's a really corrupt system controlled by Wall Street, the globalists, and the big money interests that have no interest in changing anything. Their money just keeps rolling in, and we keep passing this on to our grandchildren. Tyler Foote, keep up the good fight. Tyler, the executive director of Virginia for Americans for Prosperity. More information. Sign up, get involved, get off the sidelines. Got to get off the couch and get in the game. Go to americansforprosperity.org, americansforprosperity.org/Virginia, and we'll talk to Tyler again next week, and then we'll talk about the opening of baseball season and my favorite team of all time, the Astros, are going to win the whole